Mad Men is a show that premiered in 2007 on AMC. It was centered around an advertising agency called Sterling Cooper in New York City in the 1960s, and it ran for 7 seasons. Sterling Cooper is a high-end advertising agency which makes the definition of redefinition of a product using language created by male writers marketing towards male executives. Mad Men dealt with issues such as racism, adultery, and especially sexism. Women and men in the show were subject to strict gender roles equivalent to the times. The men seemed to rule and run society, so the women had to find ways to have their voice heard, especially leading women in the show like Peggy Olson and Joanne Holloway, which I'll be focusing on. My research will go into details on what ways the main woman characters Joanne Holloway and Peggy Olson are stereotypical and non-stereotypical in the show Mad Men. In Season 1, Episode 1, Season 2, Episode 5, and Season 7, Episode 12. So I'll first speak about Peggy Olson. Peggy begins at Sterling Cooper as Don Draper's naive but driven secretary. She quickly learns that each madman has dirt under his fingernails and becomes cautionary of becoming a sex symbol. Peggy's defiance shows through her unwillingness to allow the madman to neither sweet talk to her nor belittle her intelligence as a human being. Peggy Olson's first day at Sterling Cooper. She has more stereotypical traits in this episode because she feels she needs to prove herself to other men in the office. She wasn't taken seriously at first because of her appearance. Peggy's dressed up in heels and a dress, plus playing the good girl act to feel accepted. Season 2, Episode 5, Peggy Olson proves herself to Draper by picking him up after he got in an accident with his mistress. Draper tells Peggy that this is business and shouldn't go back to the office because his wife or no one should know. She's being nurturing and taking care of his mistress at her place, which is stereotypical. The ways Peggy was not stereotypical in this episode is she stands her ground to get promoted to copywriter in the office. She was sent to the hospital because she was pregnant but chose her career over her baby and decided to move forward and act like it never happened. So lastly, Season 7, Episode 12. In this episode and towards the end of the season, Peggy really stands her ground and proves herself. She really outweighs being non-stereotypical because when someone assumed she was a secretary because she's a woman, she was very upset. Peggy made it clear that she is a copy supervisor and will not return until she has her own office because that's what she deserves whether she's a woman or not. And now let's move on to Joanne Holloway. Season 1, Episode 1, Joanne Holloway comes off as a strong and confident woman from the beginning. She's outspoken, dresses sexy, really open about her sexuality, which is non-stereotypical. Although her tight dresses, heels, and telling Peggy what the men like and to please them is stereotypical. Now, Season 2, Episode 5. In this episode, Joanne announces that she's in love and married. She shows off her ring to the office. The boss she used to have sexual relations with earlier in the season reacted negatively towards her marriage. He tells her that it looks like she won't be here for long since she got married, and she responds back with sass, "I am not going anywhere after marriage," making it clear that her job is still important whether she has a husband or not. A great example of non-stereotypical. Another non-stereotypical situation in this episode is when Joanne explained to the new girl, Jane, to not be intimidated by Don Draper or the other men in the office. And lastly, Season 7, Episode 12. Joanne tends to show her more vulnerable side towards the end of the season as if her and Peggy reverse roles. Joanne displays non-stereotypical when she puts her job first and is willing to do anything to stay in her position. One of her male coworkers got upset that she was mad about her accounts, so she apologized, even though she wasn't in the wrong to save her job. Plus, the head boss was portraying her as a sexual object when he told her he just needs to have a good time with her, and she won't have to worry about the mistakes of her job. Even though she felt uncomfortable, she didn't stand her ground and agreed to him, which is an example of stereotypical. Lastly, another non-stereotypical aspect of Joanne in this episode is she walks away with what Roger tells her to agree on. So in conclusion, throughout the semester we learn about women in the media and in the workplace. This show and the lead woman characters is a great example of women in the workplace and the situations they were placed in working within a male-dominated industry. Regardless of the non-stereotypical and stereotypical shown throughout the episodes in the show, these women stood up for their rights in the workplace. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and got a good understanding of the show and the main character woman leads, Peggy Olson and Joanne Holloway. Thank you.